But there are still important gaps with the deadline to make a preliminary deal now 9 days away. Kerry making the comments after meeting in London with the 5 other countries involved in these talks. This as Senate leaders agreed to push back a vote on a bill that would force the Obama administration to get the approval of Congress on any deal with Iran. Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker is the chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. He also serves on the Armed Services and Budget Committees. Sir, good to have you on the program.
Glad to be back. Thank you, Maria.
What are your thoughts right now on where we stand with these talks with Iran?
I remain very, very skeptical about the talks and wary about having any confidence that the Iranian regime is a group that would comply with an agreement that we might make. This is one of the most consequential agreements that we will have in my lifetime. And it does seem to me like the Congress of the United States, or the treaty ratifying branch of the Congress, the United States Senate, should have a say in this. So I'm skeptical. I don't think the Iranians have complied in the past with the minor agreements that they've made, and I don't have much confidence that they will going forward. But I remain hopeful, and I'm listening. Right.
Well, meantime, the Ayatollah is pushing back, calling America bullies and saying that's why the deal is not happening. And the president is actually speaking directly to the Iranian people. What if a deal does not happen? What are your thoughts on the consequences on that?
Well, if a deal doesn't happen, the sanctions will stay in place, and the Iranian people will pay the consequences. But you mentioned the Ayatollah. Yesterday, he appeared before a rally where the people were chanting "Death to America." I don't remember a country that we ever entered into a meaningful treaty with where the people were chanting "Death to America," and the Ayatollah actually spoke words approving that type of rhetoric. So to me, it means that the very top leadership of this regime is a group that's out to be our enemy, and we should approach any agreement with the utmost care and skepticism. I do not trust a regime led by an Ayatollah and a supreme leader that would tolerate that kind of rhetoric.
Right, and this just a few days after the president decided to make a video to speak directly to the people of Iran. I want to talk more about this, Senator Wicker. Stay with us. We also want to talk about this crunch time, fast approaching, in the nuclear talks with Iran. What are the gaps that the U.S. and the world powers must successfully close in order to reach a deadline by the end of March? Fox News senior correspondent Eric Shawn with that angle. Eric, good morning to you.
Good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. 9 days to go, and Iran's supreme leader gave a glimpse into his thinking that, frankly, is not especially encouraging. As the senator just noted, he is said to have uttered those magic Iranian words yesterday, the offensive mantra we have heard so many times before: death to America.
This has been a 2.5-year or more process. But we recognize that fundamental decisions have to be made now, and they don't get any easier as time goes by. It is time to make hard decisions.
Who will make those hard decisions, the U.S. and the world powers, or Iran? Well, among the remaining uncertainties, if the agreement will expire in 10 years, the number of Iranian centrifuges, whether sanctions will completely drop, and will Iran really open all of its nuclear facilities fully for UN inspections? You know, it has hidden nuclear work in the past. President Obama, in an interview with the Huffington Post, seemed to zero in on that need for full inspections.
What is going to have an impact on whether we get a deal done is, number one, is Iran prepared to show, to prove to the world that it is not developing a nuclear weapon? And can we verify that in an intrusive, consistent way? And frankly, they have not yet made the kind of concessions that are, I think, going to be needed for a final deal to get done. But they have moved, and so there's the possibility.
Well, in his video message to the Iranian people this past week, the president wished them a happy Persian New Year. But Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had a different message for us, according to Reuters, during his New Year's greetings. When someone in that crowd yelled out, "Death to America," the supreme leader, who was the final arbiter of any agreement, responded in kind, repeating that phrase, death to America.
I promise you the Iranian regime will play out the clock and inevitably will have nuclear weapons. And if they don't get the nuclear weapons, at whatever deal that we do push through, we're going to leave them at threshold capability.
Well, the Supreme Leader also accused the U.S. of bullying. So while the West insists on a verifiable agreement, the current proposal already gives Iran the right to enrich uranium, itself a violation of 6 United Nations Security Council resolutions. Maria?
Eric, thank you very much. Eric Shawn with the latest there. More now with Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker and Senator, all very extraordinary events, particularly on the heels of what's gone on with Israel. Let me get your take on Bibi Netanyahu and his victory and how the president has discussed that victory and discussed what he has said about a two-state solution just recently after the prime minister won re-election.
Well, I've been very disappointed with the heated rhetoric coming from the presidential spokesman. And it seems to me, the Israeli people spoke, and it was a decisive election. And surprising, the Western pundits were not predicting anything like that. It seems to me that this would be a good time for the administration and the leadership of one of our closest allies in one of the most dangerous regions of the world to come together and start pulling in the same direction in unity. So I was very disappointed to actually hear the hostility coming from the White House spokesman the day after the election.
In fact, there were some people out there who said that the administration actually sent people to Israel to try and sway the election so that Bibi Netanyahu would not win. What are your thoughts in terms of the relationship between Israel and America now, given the clear upset between the two leaders and the president's stance toward Netanyahu?
Well, we need to have excellent relations. And we always have with Labor governments, with Likud governments, in and out. Netanyahu has won elections before. He's been voted out of office before. We've had various coalition governments, but we've always stood strong with Israel. And I was particularly concerned this week when there were noises coming from the administration about how we might, in the United Nations Security Council, move away from a very strong support of Israel, and we might let resolutions go forward that we have prevented in the past. That is, it almost sounded like retribution for the Israeli people choosing the way they did. I think the Obama administration got way ahead of itself in its rhetoric, and it's time for us to pull together with one of our dear allies.
And in the face of all of this, we've got real budget issues on the table. Let me get your take on where the priorities are. You're on the budget committee, and of course we know that one of the big dangers to the military is the return of sequestration come this October.
Well, absolutely true. But yes, and there are a lot of priorities. One, of course, is a path toward a balanced budget. And the budgets that the House and Senate will vote on this coming week actually get us to a balanced budget within 10 years, as opposed to the president's, which never comes into balance. Over 2 decades, 3 decades, the president doesn't even aspire to a balanced budget anymore. But yes, we can avoid these MEAT defense cuts that I believe harm our nation's security, and we can do that without adding to the deficit. We have devised a way to return to a higher level of defense preparedness and pay for those cuts and pay for those increases with cuts and savings elsewhere. We're going to offset the increased defense spending and not add it to the deficit. Because
we are talking about some of the lowest troops and smallest, Air Force since World War I? Well, it's the smallest Navy since World War I. The Air Force is of course, a newer branch of the service. But also, it involves personnel, it involves morale. If the people who've stepped forward to wear the uniform of the United States see that we are nickel and diming defense spending, they become discouraged, and they wonder if the American people are behind. And we don't need to send that signal at all. We are going to avoid defense sequestration and pay for
that money elsewhere.
Senator, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for your insights.
Glad to be with you.